Welcome everyone. This is your Suits and Vans Realtor man Marcus Smith, founder and team leader of the Marcus Smith Real Estate Team at Keller Williams Elite in Oklahoma City. Today's Smith Talk Tuesday episode is really an update going back to my post on September 17th in regards to the issues and problems that I had had for years at Oklahoma City Community College. I know that's back in September. A lot of changes have been put into effect since then. So what I wanted to do is try to do a brief recap if possible, and then also update you, and then kind of tell you guys, my thoughts in terms of where we're at now compared to how we were back on September 17th when I first posted my video that pretty much went viral. So let's start, guys. Okay, so September 17th, 2020, and I've got notes here, guys, that I'm going to have to read, some from, because it's just a lot. A lot's happened since September 17th, and so bear with me, okay, please. September 17th, my first public video aired on Facebook and YouTube. The title of it was My Journey and Struggles at Oklahoma City Community College. That highlighted the horrible events that I personally endured over the past 8 years or so under poor leadership and an inactive and passive HR department that was not really an HR department. We'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. My main message in that video was that there had been a history of a very punitive and retaliatory culture at Oklahoma City Community College. The same day, my initial video that was posted opened up the floodgates as the video received thousands of views and hundreds of comments just in a couple of days. The same day, the OCCC, the college newspaper, the Pioneer newspaper, printed a story titled, OCCC Supports Discrimination, Harassment, and Civil Rights Violations, Professor Says. Now, this story was based on my personal experiences that I had shared, as well as a former employee who had been terminated and was suing the college on the grounds of violating her civil rights under age and gender discrimination. Now, this particular employee, I can tell you, was not the first employee that has sued the community college. There have been several employees, faculty members that have sued the college over the past few years, and whether they settle out of court, whatever the case may be, but know that this particular employee that's highlighted in the Pioneer on September 17th was not the first employee by any means. September the 18th, the Pioneer printed another story titled, Professor Community Reacts After Video Drops About Alleged Unethical OCCC Culture. Now, this story briefly discussed and highlighted some of the hundreds of comments that were posted on my video the day before on September 17th, all extremely supportive of me. And there were several current and former staff, faculty, employees that posted supportive comments and thanked me for coming forward as they were targeted, retaliated against, terminated, etc. for what they believed was also a very punitive and retaliatory culture at the college. So just had this overflow of a lot of former and present staff, employees, and faculty who had really reached out and were posting on September the 18th on my post. September the 23rd, I reached out to one of the advocacy specialists at the Oklahoma Education Association, or OEA, as they provide legal services to all members for about $40 a month, even professors. After sending all of my collected documentation over the years, because I had saved up about probably 8 or 9 years worth of documentation, emails, text messages, and so forth in terms of my experiences going through grievance processes, supervisors at the college. So I forwarded all of this to the OEA advocacy specialist. And after sending her all of that documentation, as well as providing some of the Pioneer newspaper stories, on October 14th, I received an email that the advocacy specialist had presented all of the evidence, documents, etc. to the OEA attorney, and the legal team wanted to meet with me to discuss more specifics and what goals we were looking at. So this was huge. This was huge, okay? We agreed to all meet on October the 29th. September the 25th, Pioneer printed another story. This was kind of an opinion section here. The title was Waste Not. OCCC president spends over $800,000 on office, boardroom he's now never in. The story dealt with the former president, Jerry Stewart, and what many believe to be gross misspending, despite staff, faculty, employees not having received raises in nearly 10 years, as well as several programs who could have used some of those funds. But to many faculty, staff, and students, spending almost $1 million on an office upgrade and to feel safe while so many across campus were suffering seemed excessive, according to the author that provided this opinion piece. September 25th, same day, Pioneer printed another story titled, Changes to Come, OCCC President set to retire in 2021. President Stewart announces his retirement to go into effect on July 2nd of 2021. This wasn't surprising, as many believe that President Stewart was responsible for perpetuating this retaliatory and punitive culture at the college, as well as this retirement being connected to my story and the Pioneer stories as well. September 25th, the Pioneer printed another story, quote, employees claim college doesn't protect from bad bosses. This story was a continuation from my initial story, but now we had more and more faculty who were coming forward to share their stories and experiences as well. As I, along with the Pioneer newspaper, had now provided the platform for others to feel comfortable coming forward. And there were two professors, one current and one former, who shared their similar experiences of a retaliatory and punitive culture, as well as an HR department not protecting faculty members for quite some time. September 29th, Pioneer printed a story, Wounded Faculty Pass 2020 Resolution, wants saying new administrative hires. Now, this story highlighted that the Faculty Association met on September the 22nd and unanimously voted to have a say in how the next president would be selected, how the president must be held accountable for the alleged misdeeds, how administrators would be selected, as many of the current administrators who were believed to perpetuate this retaliatory and punitive culture at the college were appointed and did not have to go through an actual national committee search, which simply protects the status quo. So many of us were concerned about how administrators moving forward would be selected to these positions as opposed to being appointed. September 30th, I posted an update video to briefly discuss the hundreds of current and former staff, employees, and faculty that had reached out to me to share their experiences. Many of these individuals had been clinically diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and so forth. I also posted some of the many comments that were posted on my social media as well. So all of these shared experiences were from, past and present faculty, staff, and employees who had endured very horrible conditions working under a very bad supervisor. I'll just say that and be done with it. On October 2nd, based on the momentum from my initial video post on September 17th that basically kind of provided the platform for more and more faculty, staff, and employees to come forward, the new executive team that consisted of Provost Jerry Thomas, Chief of Staff Danita Rose, and Executive Vice President of the college Greg Gardner were compelled to hold a series of what were called listening sessions, 5 in total, one every week for about 5 weeks there. You can still view all of the 5 videos on YouTube by searching OCCC Executive Team Listening Session. The first session took place on October the 2nd. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but the feedback from faculty, staff, and employees was that the new executive team was less transparent, as highlighted in the Pioneer newspaper, and many believed that Danita Rose did not answer a direct question, which was, is there a culture of harassment, discrimination, retaliation, or abuse? And that Greg Gardner, did not answer a question regarding as to why so many faculty and staff, about 30, have been let go due to a reduction in force, or RIF. But the college continued to allow dozens of police officers to keep their jobs despite, quote, thousands of less people physically on campus, end quote, due to COVID, and highlighting the fact that the chief of police was making over $103,000 a year. October the 5th, I reached out to the Higher Learning Commission, the HLC. They actually provide the accreditation for the college. So a very powerful entity that determines whether our doors at the college stay open. I knew it was a long shot, but I believed I had enough documentation that I had collected over the years, as well as the hundreds of social media comments, the Pioneer newspaper stories, etc. The main reason I contacted them was due to a recent all-faculty Zoom meeting on September the 24th, to which the Vice President of Human Resources presented data that stated that the college was in compliance with all of the criteria for accreditation and was prepared for the HLC's accreditation visit in the fall of 2021. When I heard this, of course, during the meeting, I was completely shocked, as I felt the college had been in violation of Criterion 2, integrity, ethical and responsible conduct, especially in regards to item 2A that states, quote, the institution establishes and follows policies and processes to ensure fair and ethical behavior on the part of its governing board, administration, faculty, and staff. I voiced my concern regarding this compliance due to the history of the retaliatory and punitive culture that had now been exposed over the past few weeks. And when I questioned the data that showed we were in compliance during the all-faculty meeting, none could be provided or explained as to whether the data was actually valid. That is, how was this data collected? Who were the respondents? How long did this data, or how long had this data been collected? So these were questions that I asked and really didn't get a response or an answer to. October the 9th, the second listening session took place. I, of course, made it a point to attend this particular session. I attended and started the session with a statement at 5 minutes and 19 seconds into the video, because some of you may go back and view some of these listening sessions. So session 2, 5 minutes, 19 seconds into the video, I made a statement that I was going to specifically direct to Mr. Greg Gardner, the recently appointed and acting executive vice president of the college. But of course, or I shouldn't say of course, but unfortunately he was not in attendance for listening session number 2 to join the other 2 executive team members. The statement that I made was something to the effect that several faculty and myself firmly believe that Greg Gardner and HR are still part of the retaliatory and punitive culture at the college, especially since Gardner was the final decision maker in faculty grievances filed against his administrators, deans, etc. The college had just recently made significant changes to the grievance policy, which I firmly believe was in response to my grievances and others that filed grievances as well, that led nowhere. No accountability for those administrators and supervisors that had grievances filed against them. I highlighted the fact that the new policy, even though it had been completely revamped, it went from an 8 to 10 page policy to like an 80-page policy, okay? But despite the revision of the policy, I highlighted the fact that the policy still allowed Greg Gardner, just recently the former vice president of academic affairs and now the newly appointed executive vice president of the college, still has significant influence in regards to the pool of final decision makers, and believed that the overhauled policy was still arbitrary and extremely biased. Bottom line for me was that no administrator should be forcing the hand of HR. HR should be mutually exclusive from the college and should be the final decision makers and not people like Gardner. Chief of Staff Danita Rose admitted during the listening session, in response to my statement here, she admitted that she could not agree with me more, and that there are several policies that are poorly written based on her reviews of a lot of policy. She was hired to basically go into HR, make some changes. And that her new role as Chief of Staff was to do an overhaul of the HR department and make significant changes to college policy for many faculty, staff, and employees, past and present. Danita Rose went on to state that what the college had was not an actual HR department, and it was basically a mess. She finally states that it is her, quote, intention to make things better at the college, unquote, and it starts with the college policies that myself and others highlighted as arbitrary, unfair, biased, and provided no recourse for faculty, staff, and employees. Now, other faculty members add to their concerns of the culture over the years as well. During this listening session, Danita Rose pretty much ended the session by asking us to give the executive team a chance to make the necessary changes that are needed to heal the college and its faculty, staff, and employees. I ended. This was at 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 46 seconds of the video of the listening session. I ended by saying I was thankful to the executive team to take the time to listen to us and to answer our questions and say that they are going to make change. But at the end of the day, for me, as I mentioned, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. And we want to see action. And I told them that I would continue to fight for change and that I would continue to hold them accountable. That's kind of how the second listening session ended. October 29th, I posted an update to let everyone know that I had completed my sit-down interview with the Pioneer newspaper and shared it on social media. In the video, I covered various examples of what I perceived to have been retaliation, harassment, discrimination, and the inequities in regards to what I endured over the course of about 8 years, as well as highlighting some major issues surrounding a lot of college policy that I believe were poorly written and not in the best interest of faculty, especially in regards to grievances against supervisors, deans, and administrators. October the 22nd, I posted an update in regards to a meeting I had with Chief of Staff Danita Rose that morning, and it went really well. The meeting was primarily about the college moving forward now that President Stewart and the Executive Vice President of the college, Greg Gardner, were no longer in supervisory positions and no longer influencing HR decisions in regards to faculty grievances. After that meeting, I believe now under the leadership of Rose, as she had been placed in control of the day-to-day operations of the college at that time, I believe, that HR was now empowered to make equitable and unbiased decisions on behalf of faculty. That same day, October the 22nd, Pioneer printed a story. The name of the story was Controversial Admin Greg Gardner Withdraws from Leadership Roles. In the story, the college announced that Gardner requested to step down, from his role of Executive Vice President of the college. It was also announced that he would still be working at the college in a, quote, behind-the-scenes operations supervisory role. At least one employee stated in the story that, quote, they do not approve of Gardner still being allowed to hold any supervisory or other positions at OCCC, end quote. And I couldn't agree more. As many of us, especially faculty, past and present, believe that someone who treated people the way that he did over time did not deserve to continue to be employed at the college, let alone to still be in a supervisory role. On October 23rd, the HLC, the Higher Learning Commission, the entity that provides the accreditation for the college, found enough evidence in my submitted complaint to proceed with an investigation of the college. This was huge. As I was told by several people that it was a long shot to file a complaint with the HLC, and that it's extremely difficult to get the HLC to conduct an investigation. But I felt that I had provided enough documentation to compel the HLC to do the right thing, which was simply to investigate the college, and they were going to do so. So that was great news. Also, same day on October the 23rd, the third listening session took place at the college. I attended and started the session with a statement at 17 minutes and 14 seconds into the video. So my statement highlighted that several faculty, including myself, firmly believe that Interim Vice President of Academic Affairs, Kim Jameson, has also been a part of perpetuating the retaliatory and punitive culture at the college. I immediately inquired as to what the plans would be for fulfilling her position of the Vice President of Academic Affairs since she was the interim. I really pressed on the fact that she was appointed to that position, and if there would be an actual national search committee that would allow actual qualified and experienced candidates to take over that position, as the college has a history of appointing administrators to protect the status quo and perpetuating the awful culture at the college. Provost Thomas stated, he chimed in to respond to my question or statement, that they were already in the process of coordinating an actual national search and there would be no appointment. He went on to state that this committee would be so diverse with faculty, staff, employees, and a voice for students serving on that particular committee. There were other discussions regarding the gross misspending by President Stewart, despite other programs that needed funds. Danita Rose assured us that this gross misspending will cease. I then chimed in at 26 minutes and 50 seconds asking, are we to assume that the college's Board of Regents had no idea the gross misspending by President Stewart? Where was the check on President Stewart was one of the questions that I asked. Danita Rose's response was that there was a lack of a check or oversight on the president's spending, and the board was not really aware. This is going back to President Stewart spending nearly $1 million on upgrades, security, things in that nature for the office, for his office, and for one of the boardrooms there. There was no policy requiring President Stewart to report all of his spending to the board. Provost Thomas chimed in and said that after the executive team was assigned to the day-to-day operations of the college by the board, they immediately passed a policy limiting how much administration could spend without board approval. The previous board policy was very vague, according to both Thomas and Rose at that time during the listening session. It was very vague in regards to significant construction projects and spending of funds. There are now new limits and policies put in place. October 23rd, KWTV Channel 9 airs story titled Administrative Shakeups at OCCC. The momentum from my social media movement and more present and past faculty, staff, and employees now coming forward, I was able to get the media involved in helping to expose the culture at the college in hopes for change. October the 28th, college notified everyone that college policy number 2021, employment grievances, was a new and improved policy. The previous policy eliminates the requirement that an employee first, listen to this, guys. The previous policy eliminates the requirement that an employee first attempt to resolve the grievance with their supervisor when the grievance is against their supervisor, and then appeal through the supervisor's chain of command. Really? The previous version effectively, and this is from, and I'm reading basically from notification that we received from the college. The previous version effectively deterred some employees from seeking help. For years, many employees have felt they had no recourse under the terms of that policy. Really? And feared retribution. And I can tell you that based on my experiences, guys, and other experiences, that is exactly what occurred. This was one of the main policies that I argued with HR about during my previous grievances. I'm finally glad to see that it has been completely revised. On October 29th, I rescheduled a meeting with the Oklahoma Education Association, or OEA. I rescheduled that meeting that was supposed to take place this day with the legal team due to the ice storm power outages, as well as there were a lot of changes that had occurred, over the past few weeks. And so I wanted to push back our meeting, or my meeting with OEA, just to kind of be able to kind of take a step back and kind of assess everything that had been going on, or all the changes that have been taking place since my initial post on September the 17th. Okay, November the 4th, the college faculty, staff, and employees received an actual raise, something that had not occurred in, I would say, about 10 years or so. Many considered this increase or this raise as hush money to not continue to move forward with complaints against administration, in hopes that the momentum and attention that we had highlighted over the past month or so regarding the punitive and retaliatory culture, the president's misspending, ineffective HR department, etc., would now simply fade away. But I continued my pressures and requests for change by meeting with Danita Rose to discuss more change, which she was very open to achieving. January the 1st, the OCCC Board of Regents accepts President Stewart's early retirement. Remember, he wasn't supposed to retire until July of 2021. But he announced that his retirement would be in effect January the 1st. Jerry Stewart had originally I just mentioned that. But many feel that based on all the controversies surrounding his gross misspending, perpetuating the retaliatory and punitive culture at the college, etc., that he was pretty much forced to retire early. And I would have to kind of agree with that. So kind of forced out, so to speak. January the 12th, it was announced by the college that Carrie Perron, the Title IX Director of Equity and Compliance, was no longer employed in the HR department at the college. He was primarily responsible for conducting and overseeing many of the faculty grievances against supervisors and administration over the past few years, and working closely in conjunction with Greg Gardner in providing the final decision per Gardner's discretion. So he's no longer working for HR anymore. So that didn't surprise me, based on all of the problems that I had exposed and others had exposed within the HR department in the grievance process, and HR not doing anything. This was definitely, at least for me and others, a sign that there's a shakeup. There's a shakeup in HR. We're getting people out. We're getting new people in. We're definitely doing making change. We're definitely making change in HR, and one that was definitely needed. I firmly believe, and I argued and requested that for years. February the 1st. We were notified that the perceived and very biased, arbitrary, and unfair performance evaluation reviews policy and practices will be completely changed to allow multiple decision makers and not just be determined by a sole supervisor, dean, etc. This policy and practice was also one that I had highlighted needed to be changed, as there were so many of us, including myself, who felt retaliated against. However, there were many who benefited from the previous evaluation's arbitrary, biased, and unfair process. What do I mean by that? How did some people benefit? What I mean by that is that if you were passive with your supervisor and dean, then you most likely received a positive evaluation. But if you questioned, challenged, or stood up for your rights and the rights of others, you were penalized, retaliated against, and received poor performance evaluations. This is based on my own experiences and perceptions, as well as several other past and present faculty members who share their experiences with me as well. One of the main concerns was that the performance evaluations could be used as a tool by administration, HR, etc., to terminate employees of the college. HR was not able to be mutually exclusive from President Stewart and especially Greg Gardner, who was the final decision maker for faculty grievances filed against supervisors and deans. Those who were under the supervision of Gardner when he was the Vice President of Academic Affairs. See any bias there? Absolutely. I was told during various meetings that HR did not have the power to rule against Gardner, President Stewart, etc., even when some in HR believed that supervisors were in the wrong and needed to be disciplined. That is, the supervisors may not have actually violated any federal laws of discrimination, harassment, but they did violate certain standards and expectations in the treatment of faculty, staff, and employees that warranted some type of counseling, coaching, to be written up, relief for the faculty member who filed a grievance against the supervisor, etc. But that did not happen under the previous HR department and President Stewart and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Greg Gardner. February the 4th, after a follow-up email I sent, I received notification that the hiring committee to replace interim Vice President of Academic Affairs, Kim Jameson, was moving along, and interviews were taking place last week and this week. This was a huge relief for many of us, as Kim Jameson is believed to have been one of the main administrators who perpetuated the punitive and retaliatory culture that hurt so many faculty members, and she was able to get away with it because her immediate supervisor, Greg Gardner, enabled Jameson by not doing anything about it despite several grievances that have been filed against her over the years by faculty. Please recall, Gardner was the final decision maker regarding faculty grievances prior to his recent stepping down as executive vice president. My overall thoughts at this point, guys, is I think I've got like 4 or 5 bullets here, but my overall thoughts at this point. One, I am pleased to see all the changes that now Executive Vice President Danita Rose assured would take place since first meeting with her back in October. Remember, this was only about a month or so after posting my initial video. I will not go into details about our meeting in October, but I will say that I did promise Chief of Staff Danita Rose that myself and others would try and be as patient as possible and letting her make change or affect change. I cannot continue to push and pressure or demand, change. People be fired. These policies need to be thrown out. HR needs to be revamped. I mean, those are things that, that she could not, of course, get done right then and there. Remember, my video first aired on September the 17th. It was literally about 4 weeks later, a month later, when I'm sitting down having this meeting with her. And even after that, a month had passed, there had been some changes that had been made. So this particular meeting that I had with Miss Rose was simply for me to say that, we're going to kind of back off a little bit. We've already presented and come forward. Enough of us, faculty, staff, and employees have already come forward to compel the college and for Miss Rose to make change. And so now we felt that it was a good time for us to kind of back off a little bit and let her do her job in terms of affecting change, especially with the support of the OCCC Board of Regents. Okay. Point number two, my overall thoughts. Myself and others are still concerned regarding Kim Jameson. If she is replaced here within the next few weeks with the newly hired Vice President of Academic Affairs, where will Jameson go at that point? Will administration simply let her move over to the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs? And if so, that would be yet another appointment. So I do not believe that will happen. especially due to the Faculty Association's resolution and all of the concerns that myself and others voiced during the listening sessions, that we have seen too many appointments of administrators to protect the status quo in terms of the punitive and retaliatory culture at the college. So will administration let Jameson go back to becoming a dean again? I can tell you from all of the stories and experiences that have been shared to me over the years from past and present faculty members that worked under Jameson when she was their dean, that it was one of the reasons that caused many of them to have stress, anxiety, etc., and that she treated a lot of faculty very poorly. I'm definitely concerned, especially when one of my previous supervisors who retired after one of my formal grievances against them was allowed to gain employment at the college as an adjunct professor. They are not assigned as an adjunct this semester, but that could be due to the low enrollment at the college. But I will keep checking class assignments to let you know if they are allowed to come back. This former supervisor that retired met the timeline, the 6-month timeline, to be able to come back and work as an adjunct at the college, and they were allowed to do so, despite the issues and concerns that I had raised during a previous grievance. But I'm extremely curious to know where the college will place Jameson. But many of us faculty truly believe that there is no place in a leadership supervisory position based on the let me go back. But many of us faculty truly believe that she has no place. There we go. That she has no place in a leadership or supervisory position based on the damage she has inflicted on so many past and present faculty members over the years, as discussed in various Pioneer newspaper stories as well. So we shall see. I'll update you. This will definitely be an update for you guys. Item number 3, in terms of my overall thoughts at this point. There's also concern regarding Provost Thomas, that was just recently named interim OCCC president on January 2nd, 2021. You guys can see the Pioneer story titled Provost Thomas named interim OCCC president. Now, Thomas had just recently received an $80,000 salary increase to $135,000 on November the 13th, as highlighted in another Pioneer story titled Bigger Piece of the Pie, OCCC Provost now makes $185,000. Some of the increase is due to added responsibilities as Provost and VP of Student Affairs. However, it is not clear whether he received an additional salary increase due to being named interim president. Okay, here's the concern. There are several employees, faculty, and staff who are concerned with Thomas because he was handpicked by the former president, Jerry Stewart. So there are concerns of him being the status quo and preserving the status quo, which, as you have seen since last September, has been a mess for years. To add to that status quo, there have been some employees that have worked under Thomas as VP of Student Affairs that said he did not treat them with respect. I cannot speak to Thomas's leadership skills or behavior or how he treats employees, as I have not had to work under him as a faculty member. All I can say is this about Thomas. When my story aired back in September that compelled the new executive team to host the listening sessions, Chief of Staff Danita Rose, now Executive Vice President of the college Danita Rose, was the only one out of the 2 that actually reached out to me later on that day after I presented my statement and inquiries during the listening session. But she was the only one who reached out to me out of the 2 to provide her condolences, so to speak, and to meet and discuss my experiences, what changes I believe needed to occur, etc. I've not heard from Thomas at this point. Item number 4, in terms of my overall thoughts. Finally, let's think about this. Since my video back in September, the college has removed, updated, and created well over 20 policies, if not more. President Stewart retired early on January the 1st. Former Vice President of Academic Affairs and Executive Vice President of the college, Greg Gardner, no longer plays a role on the executive team and has been moved to an operations supervisory position. Some are still concerned, but at least he does not wield the power and influence he once had over faculty, staff, and employees regarding HR and the grievance process. It appears that Kim Jamison will be removed from her interim role as Vice President of Academic Affairs soon. The Oklahoma City Community College Board of Regents will be more inclusive and aware of more of the day-to-day activities and spending at the college. I was told they were embarrassed by former President Stewart's actions and wanted to effect change swiftly as well through Danita Rose. I am still awaiting to see an update regarding the Higher Learning Commission's investigation regarding the treatment of faculty, staff, and employees per my formal complaint filed back in October. Employees, staff, and faculty receive raises. HR is now a mutually exclusive department and not under the reins of certain administrators perceived to perpetuate the punitive and retaliatory culture that has gone on for years. The HR department has a new Title IX director, as the previous director, Carrie Perrong, no longer works for the college. Morale is starting to increase, and so much more has been going on since I first shared my story in September. We are still far from where we need to be as an institution, but I believe we will get there soon, but it will take some time. The punitive and retaliatory culture at the college took years to establish, so myself and others have to understand that the college will not see a complete turnaround overnight. It will take time. And I believe as long as now Executive Vice President of the college, Danita Rose, remains in her position and a member of the college, that we will continue to see more and more change over time. One of the things that now Executive Vice President of the college, Danita Rose, one of the things that she has basically earned from me is my trust. That's hard. That's difficult, especially to an administrator at Oklahoma City Community College, just based on my experiences there. But she's gained my trust in terms of the things that she said she was going to do, and the things that she said that she would continue to try and do in terms of effect change. So at least right now, she has gained my trust, or she has earned my trust until I see otherwise. Okay. Number 5, in terms of my overall thoughts. So what you can see basically in item number 4 was kind of a summary of a lot of the change that has been implemented since September. Item number 5, my thoughts. I would like to thank all of the past and present staff, employees, and faculty members who were brave enough to share their stories with me, as well as voicing them during some of the listening sessions. Many of you give too much credit to me for exposing the problems in culture that has been going on for quite some time now. All I did was finally share my story publicly on September the 17th, but it was you that helped to effect that change as well. I also want to especially thank Professor Mark Zendello, who oversees the college Pioneer newspaper. Mark and his students were relentless and continue to be relentless in providing these breaking stories over the past few months that helped to compel the college to make changes as well. The Pioneer was bold, but more importantly, they were brave in exposing the ugly truths regarding the college, and we, as the OCCC family, will forever be grateful to them and the Pioneer. Lastly, for the former employees, staff, and faculty who are no longer with us, I hope that our actions over the past few months in exposing the problems at the college has provided some sort of validation and peace for you. Though I know the college could never make up for how it treated many of you, and I am sorry that you had to endure so much during your time at the college. But please know that your stories and spirit continue to fuel my drive for change. This is really all that I have for you guys at this point. I'll continue to check on the progress, and here within the next few weeks or so, I'll provide another update for you. I hope this was beneficial. I will also throughout my video, I'll post some notes, some photos, some links, some other information for you guys to be able to go back and look and read some of these stories from the Pioneer, to be able to go back and watch some of the videos that I posted, whether it's on Facebook or social media. But just know, at the end of the day, I'm still going to continue fight for change because employees, staff, and faculty members deserve it. We don't deserve to be treated the way that we have been treated in the past. And so I'm hoping that we're moving forward to a new beginning, to a new future. And I'll keep you posted, guys. Have a good one.